Tesla is on the verge of some huge convergences in technology, some big things going on that may have flown under your radar. Certainly, they flew under mine. Things like the semi, the robot, but not just what they are, but how they're being rolled out, and how all of these pieces are coming together at once to form a pretty exciting thing. I'm joined today by Jon Twigge from the UK. He has been in software for over 30 years, but he is a big picture guy who studies all kinds of technological trends and has some pretty fascinating insights into how it all works. Let's have a conversation. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza.
It's really nice to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, you earned your spot. The viewers last time said, yeah, bring him back. He's a smart cookie. And I said, you mean biscuit, because they don't understand. They don't get us.
And of course, I had biscuits once in the US and got very confused because biscuits here are cookies. Yes, very confusing.
Yeah, I ordered biscuits and gravy in England and did not get what I was
No,
expecting.
you wouldn't. No, because gravy here is brown with
Yeah.
beef stock. Yes.
Yeah, some biscotti with brown gravy. It's delicious. I recommend
Oh,
it to no one ever.
no, don't do that.
So I saw this fantastic post on X the other day by this fella here, this Jon Twigge fella. I'm not sure who that is. Some young dashing fella. Maybe you, maybe you recognize him. But the joke is that this is our guest today. Unbelievable magic convergence from Tesla. Last couple of days have seen some very telling news and reports, yet more clues and evidence of the shock to the global system that is coming soon. Some key issues. So what we're looking at here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jon, is that you're looking at all these little pieces and you're seeing a pattern emerge. Is that right?
Yes. Everybody's talking about the individual bits. And people, I mean, if you look at Rethink X, they're saying all these new technologies are coming. But not many people are following that through and saying, well, how does that all add up? What's the bigger picture? So, and that starts to get really shocking or exciting or both.
So Dr. Scott, friend of the show, says that Tesla has a new trick up their sleeve, and he's not joking. With the new Optimus hands with 22 degrees of freedom will have a dexterity in its hands to rival or even better humans, and it'll be able to do virtually any manual job that a human can, probably a lot more of them, and soon, and do it faster and better and longer and cheaper. So, talk to me about this. How important are those 22 degrees of freedom, and why is this something unique to Tesla?
Well, we've seen that on various robot videos, some of the competitors have got really simple, just grippers and
Claws.
claws, even, yes, so that it's actually surprising what you can achieve with that. But of course, they're not going to thread a needle, they're not going to be sewing. There's all sorts of detailed tasks that you won't be able to do with those. Now, of course, one of the things I put later in the post, I ignored the detail of sensors and pressure, all the complications, but just looking at the degrees of freedom. 1 degree of freedom, you open and close.
Mm-hmm.
22, that gives you, if you multiply that up in binary, 4 million different possible combinations of how you would use those hands. Well, that's each hand, and you've got two of them. So the training for that is going to be incredibly complex, and the
Mm.
subtleties of following operations in a way that I would expect just would not be possible in the same way FSD with the driving. They found it was extremely difficult to code it, but to actually follow and repeat the actions, and that's what we're seeing in one of the videos. We're seeing the trainers with the AV gear on, training the
Right.
robots in the latest video. They're following the example in the
Mm-hmm.
same way as the baby would follow the example of parent or whatever, doing things and then trying it, exploring. So the training data can actually then try and reproduce all those actions for all those different things. But the key there is those 4 million combinations and the power that you're going to need to to train to that level. It's going to be massively more compute to make that work in a way that I suspect some of the others would take an extremely long time, if ever, to get to the level of training to all those degrees of freedom.
I was asking my kids, how many do you need this, or is this important? And they said, why would you ever need this? And I said, well, do you want it to be able to carry a tray and balance it? And that is a very cheap way to increase the balance of something like that. And there are, of course, infinite applications. So
And of
there's,
course, something we do that's similar, which often when we've got a lot of things to carry, we'll
mhm.
grip something significant, we'll put the plate in those three fingers, but we'll
Oh,
balance a cup on the little finger at the same
yes,
time to do all these things. So you're obviously not going to do that with an open closed gripper.
right, with a binary claw.
Yeah.
So we may come back to that. And this topic is so big that we may be doing this as a two-parter. But let's take a look at the next one. Walmart receives its first Tesla Semi. Now, I would point out that somebody said, well, this could just be a leased truck. But if you look up the DOT number on the side, it traces back to Walmart Transportation Incorporated. So this is a Walmart licensed truck. The S-curve keeps slithering. The Tesla Semi progress has been very slow in terms of units in operation, but we already see some amazing stats in terms of miles covered and charging rates. And we've seen the first unit in Walmart attire, and a few more are coming. While we currently crawl along the path, along the very early bottom of the Semi curve, in about 2 years, there'll be a bigger ramp, which will be, and then there will be almost unsatiable demand. So, how
And of
big is
course,
this?
those stats are really important because when we saw the big, I don't know what, they do various tests on various manufacturers in then their natural. The Tesla did over 1,000 miles in a day because it's got the highest range and it then charged within 3/4 of an hour or so, another 80%, giving a total. The others were struggling to do 400 miles. Now, they also haven't got the cameras for FSD. So when all these things converge, there's really practically going to be one choice, or one first choice, of course, in terms of what semi you would like to buy. And another thing that we might see, very interesting, that the Cybertruck, it's not actually out yet, the range extender plugs in the back.
Hmm.
Not not hard to imagine that they might do a similar trick with a semi and stack 2 or 3 extenders for very long trips. So there really is only one first choice for semi at the moment, and it's difficult to see. Was it Mercedes said this is impossible? One of the
Yes,
big guys.
they said physics. They're pretty sure it works the same in Europe as in the US.
Yes. I think the problem is what they're doing is they're starting with the current technology and saying how far can you push the current technology. Of course, that's not what Tesla and Elon Musk do. They go back to first principles and say what's theoretically possible, not what's possible by just making minor tweaks with what we've got now, pushing an electric battery into the current designs, etc. So it's all those details that compound by making all of the changes you need to get everything right in terms of the battery cooling, the more efficient motors, the aerodynamics, and those things compound in their own little way. Even 3 or 4 percentage points in terms of your overall performance adds to the 3 or 4% you get from someone else and the 10% you get somewhere else, and that multiplies up, and you end up making a very different proposition. So there will be second choices and third choices of trucks, and some people will buy them because Tesla just can't make enough fast enough.
That's absolutely true. I had a chance to look under the hood of a Kenworth and an e-Cascadia, a handful of, I want to say I got to look under the hood of the Mercedes, the Daimler truck. And one thing they all had in common was the entire hood area was
Mm.
full. That space was occupied, and they had more gear hidden in the rails in the back. And all I could think is, what is all this stuff? What are you doing? If you look under the hood of a Tesla Semi, you'll find it is very orderly. And the way they got some of those efficiencies, as you may know, on the rear axles, there's two motors. One of them only engages at low speed, and the other, and then it disengages, and the other does the pushing at high speed. Because once you're up to speed, you don't need 500, 800, 1,000 horsepower. It takes very little. And we've
Yeah,
seen
there are
the same.
three motors altogether, aren't there? The two on
Yes.
the rear, two go for acceleration, but once you're rolling, you need very little power. So yes. The other thing we don't know about those other trucks, or at least I don't, maybe you do, we're just hearing, we'll probably talk some other time about Ford cutting back because they can't make money. Are those trucks profitable? Can they actually make them in any volume? That's another big question, especially as the batteries tend to be bigger to get even any range, and therefore, obviously, the batteries are the most expensive bit.
So there's a lot of opacity in this field. We know that those companies have volumes that are so high that they can absorb losses on a small product like this. What we also don't know is the retail price, because it goes through a dealer network and the pricing is very opaque. So we don't know if they're paying $350 a truck, $500 a truck. It makes comparison very difficult, but it is very possible that they're losing money on a per unit basis while delivering a truck that's not that great. I've
And
seen,
of course, you said they've got the volume in other areas to
right,
subsidize it.
right.
But as the valley of death kicks in for some of their other products and they start to go down in volume and the unit economics on the other products go down as well, they're going to feel pressure from all directions.
Well, I assume they're hoping that the lines cross before they die. And
Mm.
that is not an unreasonable assumption. Do as good as you can now. We'll subsidize your losses. Try and get this sorted out before it's too late. I've seen a number of people saying Tesla is so late to this game that it's inexcusable. Others have had their electric semis on the road for years. Yes, 100-mile trucks, 150-mile trucks. That is great for a lot of applications. But if it's not good for the vast majority of applications, and you're losing money on a per unit basis on a truck that costs 2 or 3 times more than a diesel, you have an unsustainable product. And what Tesla must do is make a profit on every unit sold. They need to, you cannot ramp production if what you're doing is ramping losses. Okay.
And people are saying, is the semi very late? But is it? Was it a balancing act with the batteries? The batteries they were busy, were they waiting for the right batteries? We've got CATL talking about new batteries, all sorts of possibilities. So if they don't start ramping that for another 18 months, 2 years, I'm not sure when the factory's ready, they might have even more options in batteries. And of course, if the batteries are coming down to $75 or even $50 per kilowatt, and the IRA credits even more, you could almost be looking at free batteries. So
Or less than free batteries. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
it's possible. It's not on the horizon just yet, but it is possible. And I've had a lot of people disagree with me in the comments where I say that they have to choose between building one semi or versus building 7 to 10 Model Ys that will qualify under the IRA credit. They say, no, you can get batteries anywhere. Right, not for the IRA. Not for the IRA. They have to come from a certain place. So not all, while there may not a some shortage of batteries, there is a shortage of, not all batteries are created equal under tax law. Okay.
But we know new factories are coming, CATL North America in the future, etc.
CATL
46,
announces, yeah,
yeah, 40,
well,
4680 ramping, all sorts of things. So yes, there's going to be a race between increasing the battery production and as the number of volume and all the different uses go up. So at times there will be more short than others. Other times they'll have more than enough. But yeah, interesting times.
it is interesting times, and batteries are getting cheaper, and CATL has a new pack that they want to sell to auto manufacturers that has a 15-year million-mile warranty. And that's their expectation is that over the first 5 years, and I don't remember if it was 50 or 100,000 miles, no degradation, no loss of charging in the pack. So,
And that is particularly interesting for the semi, which might end up doing several 100,000 miles over its lifetime. So you would hope that if they're willing to guarantee 100,000, it's likely to do 3, 4, 500,000 in practice.
well, the 100,000 is for zero degradation, and the million is for, but these are LFP batteries, which are less energy dense and maybe not as well suited for longer haul semi applications. But if you are doing a port to warehouse operation where you know you've only got 100, 200 miles a day, and you can charge at a reasonable speed at either end of the depot run, then those could absolutely work. And why not if there's enough of them? And you'd also mentioned that sodium ion batteries are coming, which can make it can move everything one step up the ladder. Sodium doesn't have the energy density of LFP. Great. Use it in stationary storage. Take the LFP you were putting in stationary, put it into automotive, and then you've got enough batteries. And
But
yeah,
one of the latest announcements they did was a sodium with a little bit of iron in it as well. And they were saying that was very, very close. So that's that composite battery they're talking about. I don't know what time scales they're talking about, but they are getting closer. So that could be significantly cheaper, better range, and also equal life of an LFP. So interesting.
Absolutely crazy. And I look at a lot of these people who are just obsessed with hating on something that they don't invest in, won't buy one of. And I wonder if those people are all sodium ion batteries because damn, they salty. So I
Yeah.
think we've gone long enough for today. We're going to break this in half. We're going to do a part 2 coming tomorrow or so, very soon. Guys, in the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? All that good stuff. Did you have something you wanted to pop in there real quick?
I was just going to say this post's quite long. This might take 3 or 4 if we were to cover it in detail. But yes,
Then it
there's
may be
so much
longer.
to cover.
It is a
Yeah.
lot. And the idea is that Tesla has a unique position in the market because they are not siloed where every department does its own thing and they don't talk. Everything is run. Engineers are not encouraged to talk. They're required to talk. And that's where a lot of the solutions come. And you
I
look
think
at,
that
yeah,
yeah, the one thing we ought to say is if semi production does begin to ramp in 18 months to 2 years, FSD is likely to be looking pretty good by then, given the current rate. So we might be looking at moving to autonomous semis almost straight out of the gate.
amazing. And you have to wonder, that was a speculation that some of us talked about 6 months ago or so, is maybe that's why they're holding off on the semi at this time, is because
Mm.
they're concerned that do we even need a cab? Tough to say today, impossible to say today, but these things are all impossible until all of a sudden they're not. So what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Come back for part 2. We're going to have some more fun, and let us know what we missed in those comments. And stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, in part 2.
Thank you.